Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wolf Catholic Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Stassi, wait, the campus minister at the Catholic Center at the University of West Georgia. Joined, as always, by Father G. Father G, how are you doing and where the heck are you?
Hey guys. So I am in a dorm room, and this is the most bizarre experience of walking in here and like feeling like it's like, wow, I've dialed back time. So I'm up in Ottawa, Canada, and I am here for an in-person portion of my last semester of studies in canon law, which I've been doing for the past 4 years, including the past 3 years that I've been a pastor at Our Lady of Perpetual Help and campus minister at West Georgia. So this is the last semester. We have 2 weeks of in-person courses, and then after that, I have to prepare for my comprehensive exams. And finish out, and I'll finish out with and get a degree, what's known as a JCL, which is a Juris Canonici Licentia.
Oh,
So it is an ecclesiastical, a church degree that says that I am licensed to practice the science of law, church law, canon law, in service for the church's mission. We can talk, you know, more about what that means if people have any questions. A lot of people are very intimidated by canon law, and they're like, "What? Why? It's like Jesus and gospel and law, like
mm,
So that could be a whole separate topic. But that's where I am. So I'm up in Ottawa in a dorm room. I have a couple of hours in between in classes and stuff today. So we're
okay.
like, we're going to record.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it looks sunnier there than it does here. It's kind of yucky out here in Georgia.
It is blue skies, bright
Uh,
and sunny, and like 50 degrees.
oh man,
It's
beautiful. Yeah,
beautiful.
it's yucky here, but
And yesterday was a holiday here. It's Victoria Day, is a big national summer holiday in honor of the monarchy. And this is a dominion. It's, I mean, Canada is an independent country, but the head of state is the monarch of England, of Great Britain.
right.
Um, and we had dinner across the river from Ottawa is the province of Quebec, French
Wow.
speaking Gatineau. So we had a beautiful dinner. And in Quebec they call it Patriot Day because they don't want to honor the British monarchy across there. So it's funny. It's a different country, a different
Yeah.
history. It's great.
Well, that is awesome. You can smuggle me some maple syrup in from Canada if you don't mind.
I think I'll do that. I don't have to smuggle it. I don't think the Customs and Border Police
No,
will mind.
smuggle it. It makes it sound better. All right.
All right.
All right. So
Okay.
that's awesome, Father. We're praying for you and your studies, and we're grateful for all you're doing and your educational endeavors.
Thanks, Sean.
So today we're going to be talking about a pretty relative topic, especially in our current political environment in the United States, and that's pregnancy and specifically unexpected pregnancies in our youth, and kind of the issues that arise with that, the opposing sides on the political spectrum, and kind of where we stand as a country on this issue. And we're just going to kind of dive into it and approach it from a Catholic point of view,
Right.
um, and just from a moral point of view as well. And we're basing it kind of on this article from the Catholic News Agency called "Moms on Campus: How Are Catholic Colleges, but really colleges in general, helping students facing unexpected pregnancies?" And really, this article just highlights how Catholic colleges, some of them, are what steps they're taking to help this
Mhm.
issue whenever a student is facing an unexpected pregnancy, and they're addressing as opposed to just kind of brushing it under the rug. And so, Father, just any initial thoughts on this topic?
I think it is, as you said, very relevant. And when I was glancing over the article, it talked about a difference in mindset. I'd say definitely 60, 70 years ago, probably even 40 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
on especially in a Catholic environment, an unexpected pregnancy of a young woman, whether it be a teenager, whether it be young adult, would be sort of dealt with shame, with hush hush,
Mm-hmm.
brush it under the carpet. And there'd be a lot of negative feelings that the woman would face, maybe loved ones would. Um, and that environment has obviously changed, right? And let's talk about why was that sense of shame there? Because the culture disapproved of extramarital and premarital sexual activity.
Right.
So the way any culture, any culture deals with things that it thinks is immoral, it is a human reaction. You project disapproval and shame. If you think about it, um, that's what the modern culture does too when it comes to other things. If we talk about, let's talk about, um, say, something that everyone agrees on is bad, right?
Mhm.
Racism. And
Right.
so people who say something racist, or like, who get caught on a recording, they are treated with disapproval and shame,
Yeah.
because that is how every culture of human beings responds to anything that violates social norms, deeply held social norms, right? So
Mhm.
we can look at that and say that the culture has changed in that we don't shame young Catholic women really as much anymore, or young women anymore.
Right.
And in a sense, that's a good thing, because there was a lot of the way that, I think, again, it's not my experience, but from what I've understood, the way that shame was projected was what it really felt oppressive, and it caused a lot of, I think, emotional
Mhm.
wounds and so on. Um, and human cultures do that, and so you could say, some people say we've evolved, but we've evolved because in general the culture doesn't look at premarital and extramarital sexual activity as morally problematic at all.
Mhm.
um, the reality remains, maybe in some Christian and Catholic contexts it's still looked down with shame, but I do think the way in which a Christian response has moved on this idea, um, is not so much to use moral disapproval, but really something that might be a little more in line with how Jesus deals with the woman caught in adultery. Right?
Mhm.
Um, he doesn't shame her. He looks at her with love,
Mhm.
um, accepts her, uh, her person, not her sin, and says, "Go sin no more." So I think that's initially, at least. And we'll get into the concrete, and you can talk a little bit more about that, Sean, about like what are some of the concrete things that can be done or are being done.
Yep.
But at least from the mindset of how culture responds to morally problematic issues, I just wanted to share that perspective. And the other thing, real quick, both in the example of Jesus and the example of like shaming the woman, there's just something about our human cultures. It's the woman who's shamed, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
she didn't get pregnant on her own. Right?
Nope.
There was a man involved, and the that's problematic. That shame is directed only at women, um, and whether it be adultery, whether it be with pregnancy, and so on. Um,
Yeah.
no, and that's something I think that the gospel can really encourage us. Not that we should go around shaming everybody, but more that we respond with compassion, and it's like, all right, how do we support? How do we support? So those are just some initial thoughts on culture and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say from what I've seen here on campus and working at the PRC and Pregnancy Resource Center, um, the general vibe for non-Christian young women is that they don't go to Christians for help if they experience a crisis pregnancy because of what Father talked about, the judgment and stuff that may have been more prevalent in the past but has carried over into our modern society, and they just can't get that taste out of their mouth. And we have to understand that, empathize with that,
Mhm.
as a society and as a religion, and try to be more like Jesus. And that's kind of what we're seeing in these pregnancy resource centers now. So much so that like the name Pregnancy Resource Center is starting to phase out because women, they don't want to go, like if they don't want to have a baby, they don't want to go to a place that has pregnancy in their name. They don't want to be associated with that word.
Mm.
And it's scary for them. They don't want to feel like they're being pressured. And now the pregnancy resource centers that I know and have looked into and whatnot, and that I am on the board for, like they just offer objective love and compassion and care for the mom, for the baby, and they do everything they can to provide support for them. Um, but to take that first step, you have to be willing to trust them, and that's kind of the stepping stone which we're coming across in our youth, and our young women and young couples, is they're scared to take that initial step due to fear of judgment. I mean, not I mean, probably a couple of decades ago, they were using fear tactics to get these women to have these babies instead of love.
Mhm.
Not the Pregnancy Resource Center here, but
In
how
the
he talks
culture,
about,
right? Yeah,
right, the culture,
like in
yes,
church or
exactly.
family. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so the religious trauma from that has carried over, like what you were
Mhm.
talking about.
No, I think you're right, and I think you're absolutely right. The I think, and this could be another tangent we can revisit.
Yeah.
At least going back, like 50 plus years ago, apart from the culture, there was also the disincentive, if you will,
Hmm.
of the law, right?
Right.
And we can talk a little bit about the law and politics a little if we get to it. If not,
Yeah.
some other time. But one of the things right now, so if you think about it, when things are illegal,
Hmm.
um, there is a and what is when a society makes something illegal, that means it uses the coercive power of the state to say this particular kind of activity will result in punishment, right?
Hmm.
Will result in deprivation of liberty or property or something, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically saying, as a society, we believe these particular activities are harmful. They are against the common good. That's why speeding carries fines, texting while driving, and you think about all kinds of driving related stuff, but all kinds of other things. And so when a society right now, and things are changing with the law, but when the law says that it's okay for a woman to quote unquote deal with a pregnancy by eliminating the life of the child, um, there's we don't have the protection. The child does not have the protection of the law. Um,
Hmm.
and so there's a greater responsibility then that we encourage women, encourage the mother and the father if he's involved, to really see the reality of what's in there, and see how it is in the child's and their best interest, right? And to do it, as you say, with love, with compassion, with accompaniment, without condemnation, without the sense of condemnation. And the other thought is, again, people fear coming to Christian um, related ministries or outreaches is because that's the perception, rightly or wrongly, that Christians on this issue or when it comes to sex are repressive, are judgmental or condemnatory, and will not deal with the person with compassion. And no one wants to go somewhere where they're going to get yelled at,
Hmm.
where they're going to get treated and felt like they're shameful, or that there's something wrong with them, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of some ways that I've seen that, especially point out in this article, that they're helping is, while these women are going to college, this happens quite often in college campuses. They're getting relationships. Sometimes they, you know, have the act of intercourse, and that leads to pregnancy. And then they're
sure.
like, "Oh, what do I do?" And you tend to drop out. And
Mhm.
what these Catholic campuses are doing is trying to provide support via childcare, maternity housing, that type of support, all sorts of different kinds. There's a lot of different stats on the article, and I'll put that in the show notes for you guys to see. But it's trending upwards, at least amongst Catholic college campuses, and I hope among other campuses as well, so that these moms can continue to get an education, have support from the university, so they can still be the mom to their child in a healthy way, and then move on to careers that are beneficial for them and their child.
Right.
Um, and I think that is a good trend that I'm seeing here, especially in the Catholic faith. As Catholics, it's good to see that, but obviously there's still a lot of work to be done, and
Yeah.
uh, and yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Father.
No, I was just going to ask you. I know you're on the board of the local pregnancy resource center, and at our campus, we have that sign. This article mentions the one of the projects of the U.S. Catholic bishops is walking with moms with purpose. Is that what it's called? No.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. And so we have that sign there. So right there on campus, right there on Maple Street, right where it's visible, where people can say, "Hey, are you pregnant? You need help. Call this number."
Right.
And we had some issues with that sign when it first went up. It was vandalized twice, right?
Yeah.
Hasn't happened since. But hey, whoever was that, someone was angry. And often when people are very angry by this issue is because it's very close to home. And so we
Yeah.
pray for whoever that may have been involved with that, and pray for certainly everyone who's gone through the horror of having had to for whatever reason, um, commit abortion or kill their child, right? Pray for them
Yeah.
as well. Um, but I just was wondering, just like in your experience of, so we're not at we're not a Catholic college, and at a non-Catholic college, especially a secular university, in as much as this issue will be talked about, I suspect we talked about more from the other point of view, which is like, well, if you are not ready, then we can deal with the problem, and the deal with the problem is by taking your child's life and disposing of it as if it was something to be disposed of, right? It's disposable.
Yeah.
Um, so that encouragement is sort of in the air. Right? That's always an option. So I'm just wondering, in your experience at the PRC, how is it that women seek you out, the PRC, and
Mhm.
and how are they? I mean, you shared a little bit about it, but what's that been like for you, especially?
Yeah, so majority of how young women get to the PRC is just word to mouth, someone telling them to reach out. We have been doing, I'm on the marketing team as well. We've been boosting our Google ads and whatnot, but we've received, we get censored. Google will, censor our advertisements and stuff, and just completely delete them. And so we've just kind of scratched the surface on that and broke through that, and that's happening across the nation. So we are being censored in terms of advertisements, uh, but most of it is word to mouth, and most of them are Christians, or at least open to having the baby. We're wanting to. I mean, you don't want
Mhm.
to see a bunch of abortion-minded women, but that's who the Pregnancy Resource Center is really there for. Is for women that, because they want to save lives, right? They want these women to feel like they can have this child and support a child and accompany them through that. And that's what I was saying before. Like even the name is like now
Is a
something.
disincentive, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so, normally it's word to mouth, or it's a friend of a friend that told someone, or a parent, a young person went to a parent of a friend, said, "Hey, I'm pregnant. What do I do?" Go to the PRC. They'll help you out. Everything's free at the PRC. They have parenting classes at the PRC, and it's really such an amazing ministry that I wish more people would go to. And there's a good bit of women that go to the PRC every week and get a
Mm.
lot of help, but I want to see more women that you know are scared to have they're about to make the decision to end their life with their baby, and if they go to the PRC, that could change,
Right.
and that's really what I want to see more of. And I think it's going to come through more social media advertising,
Hmm.
Google ads, me like us getting on campus, uh, talking to the college students, you know, objectively from a place of love and compassion, wanting to help, as opposed to a political platform to
Sure.
push the pro-life movement. That's what we're seen as. We're seen as a Christian, pro-life, Republican movement, and that is something we need to get away from. That image, because that's not at all what the case is, and we need to be seen more as a loving,
Right.
compassionate ministry that empathizes with the position that they're in and want to help them in any way we can, and the young men as well. Like I mentor young fathers that are soon to be fathers at the PRC, and that's been amazing. But usually there's no father in the picture, and I want the men to see that it's a beautiful thing as well, and not just to walk out of the picture. So
Right. Right. And no, that's also very interesting again because there are several levels to this whole issue, right? And what you're involved in with the PRC is really on the it's where the rubber meets the road. It's the grassroots, and you're actually like responding and accompanying to the person who's in front of you. Right?
right,
At that point, you're not talking about laws, you're not talking about court cases. You're not. It's just like, how do we support you? How do we love you? How do you know that you are loved? That you're precious. You're made in the image and likeness of God. Your life means something. You're worth more than whatever it is you're facing.
yeah,
um, and it's that connection is so important. It's
hmm
so important, um, and genuinely so, because we all need that. It's a deep human need to know that we are loved and that there's a place that's safe. And people come to this point or to so many other issues, in life because of all kinds of things, our own our own failings and weaknesses, but we're shaped by our own circumstances.
Mhm.
And certainly, there's always the freedom of one's own choice, one's own decision. Um, so I think that's very important. So this aspect of the, called the pro-life movement, whatever, I think really needs to be emphasized and highlighted more because, as you say, yeah, the advocacy side of things are where people is sort of the more visible side, and it's also the side that the media in general are not sympathetic to. They're very hostile to the
Opposite.
pro-life point of view, and so they're going to highlight the negative, and they're going to highlight, or at least what's perceived as the negative, and they're never going to, you're not going to see a national story on, like, the different kinds of works that pregnancy centers do, largely unfunded, in most places not funded in any way by the state, entirely volunteer based, the work that they do, right? Um, so yeah, I think it's important. I mean, the advocacy side is also important. It's not like you can't get away from that, right?
Yeah.
But I think that has to be separated from, like, we are right there
Mhm.
working to love men and women and children, to to let them know, especially the love of God, and to support them very practically with all kinds of things. Um,
Yep.
so
Awesome. Very good. Okay. Yeah. And if any of you guys are out there, you are experiencing a crisis pregnancy, or you know someone that is experiencing just a pregnancy in general, doesn't have to be unexpected. Go call the PRC, set up an appointment, free pregnancy test, uh, free mentoring, free ultrasounds. Everything is completely free. They walk with you, and the whole 9 yards. It's a top class organization, and they're truly amazing women there, that will walk with you. So reach out to them. I don't know their phone number, but you can just Google it. Like I said, we got some fresh Google ads, so they should look really good.
that's
So
awesome. Just real quick, the article mentioned one religious community. This is at the University of St. Mary in North Dakota, right?
right.
Um, let's see, what's the name of that community? Uh, St. Teresa of Calcutta Community of Mothers, which is offering the most comprehensive support programs for young moms pursuing a college degree. So this is really heartening that you have this, like, a
Hmm.
bunch of Catholic colleges that are really walking the walk
Yep.
with supporting women who find themselves pregnant. And it doesn't even have to be, like, as you said, a crisis pregnancy. It's just, you're pregnant and going through college. You need extra help. You need extra support. So I think it's wonderful. And I wish this would really catch on elsewhere. I also wanted to highlight another community of religious sisters um, up in New York. I've mentioned that to you recently, Sean. The Sisters of Life. They were founded in 1990 by the then Cardinal Archbishop of New York, Cardinal Connor, and their whole charism. They're beautiful, joyful sisters who love God, and love the poor and love moms. And their whole charism is to promote the gospel of life in its entirety. And they run several homes for young women who need a place to stay while they're pregnant. And for a while, I remember their Christmas card every year would be this long fold out card of the faces of all the children who were born from the moms that they're living with and supporting and in relationship with. So it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So we can have a link to the Sisters of Life as well in the show
Definitely.
notes.
Yeah.
So good.
That's a lot of amazing work that's being done that likely will not get a lot of media,
Correct.
sadly. So
Yeah, and that's just a good point. We are everything. We're shaped by so many different influences, and my encouragement to all of, especially young Christians and Catholics, is question. Question the narrative. That's sort of the slogan of the counter revolution of the '60s and '70s. Well, question everything. Question what the media is saying, and try and understand biases, and do some investigation on your own. Understand how this is all used to manipulate, um,
yeah.
uh, largely.
Yeah.
Journalism has really been corrupted, I think. But let's not get carried too far away. All right.
Another hour, and we'll talk about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Let's get into the question of the day, and then we'll
Oh
end.
yeah.
All right, this is a fitting question of the day based on the topic. Other than the Blessed Mother, who is your favorite female saint,
Oh.
or one
Oh
of?
man.
I don't want to stick you like make you choose the top one. You can one
No,
of.
no, no. So there's so many immediately come to mind.
I can see.
Um, you know, Teresa of Lisieux is up there. Saint Teresa is up there. Teresa of Calcutta. But I want to talk about Catherine of Siena.
Oh yes.
Catherine of Siena, this third order Dominican,
Mhm.
woman. She was the child. I mean, I forget how many brothers and sisters. Like I want to say
A
like
lot.
20
Yeah.
that their parents had and grew up, and from a young age was just so devoted to the Lord. Um, not educated, right? She never had formal education, but had such a deep mystical relationship with the Lord. Her dialogue, the dialogue of Catherine of Siena, is one of the most beautiful texts of spiritual theology. Um, and the other cool thing, so she lived in the 14th century. And in the 14th century, for most part, for about 70 years, the Pope was not living in Rome. He lived in Avignon in France as part of the whole politics of the Middle Ages. And there was this very there was a lot of control that the French king had over the papacy. Um, and towards the end of that time, the Avignon papacy, that's the time of Catherine of Siena. Um, it was she she would write to the Pope
Mhm.
and basically, call him sweet father and like the representative of Jesus, but you need to come back to Rome,
Yeah.
like very boldly and with great charity. Um, and she was instrumental in actually having the Pope come back. Now that caused a whole bunch of other problems. Oh, didn't cause, but there was a whole bunch of other problems. The next 40 years, there was like three different candidates claiming to be the true Pope. So
Yeah.
anytime we think the church is in trouble now, like just read history and there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. But Catherine of Siena, her love for Jesus, in the Eucharist, her intimacy, and her boldness. Man, she's awesome. And she's a
Yeah.
doctor of the church. So,
Yeah. She is awesome. Definitely. Yeah. She's. Gosh, what an amazing woman.
yeah.
All right. Well,
One day
that's.
please God, we'll meet them. We'll
That's
meet the
oh yeah,
saints.
my gosh,
So
could you imagine the
I
communion of
know,
saints? They're praying for us right now. How amazing is it to think about that
I know.
in the busyness of all of our daily lives? Um, they're up there praying for us. So, all right, I think that'll do it. Let's get back on to our busy lives. I gotta go to Atlanta. You're up there in Canada. Go get some waffles with some maple syrup. Study some canon law. I'm gonna drive in beautiful Atlanta traffic.
Right. Well, listen, you say hi. You say hi to all those people at the meeting and Bishop John. Okay.
I will. I will. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week. And we thank you as always. Episode 13. We're praying for you guys. Please pray for us. Have a blessed day.